Hey you guys, I have a quick twin flame talk for you today about self-worth. But in this case, how you are viewing your twin flame self-worth. This came to me a couple weeks ago or so, and I just haven't had a chance to record yet. But I was told by Spirit that my twin, my DM, was processing some self-worth wounds that he needed to process through his heart chakra with the kundalini, breaking through the blockages before he would be ready to move forward, or it's just a step in his process. So anyway, it got me thinking about the self-worth conversations are conversations that we've had a lot of over the years, and many, if not all, divine masculines struggle with it. I don't know specifically why, as far as why so many divine masculines struggle with self-worth wounds, but I do recognize that the vast majority of divine masculines, divine feminines too, but especially divine masculines, they have very difficult lives. They go through a lot of trauma in childhood, and honestly everybody with past lives too, but especially divine masculines in childhood, and it creates avoidant attachment disorder and significant abandonment and self-worth wounds. And that is one of the internal battles that the divine masculines have to overcome over the course of their journey. And so it just got me thinking, I don't know why this time. Maybe it's just, these words that Spirit put into my head this time. But I was thinking about this, and what came to me was, how are you measuring their worth? It's one thing of how we assess our own, which we can't help, and it's mostly subconscious as well, which is divine masculine's problem, right? It's a subconscious process. But how are you viewing them as the divine feminine? Whatever it is that's going on with your masculine, whatever their situation is, whatever your interactions are like, whether you're in contact or you're not in contact, whether you've had good interactions or bad interactions, like, how are you viewing them, and how are you viewing their worth? How are you measuring their worth? Because regardless of what you think of them and how you feel about them, on a 3D level, that is, a 3D awareness, when you step back and you just feel the connection, all you feel is that unbreakable soul connection, right? And that divine love. Well, if you are retreating back into 3D thinking and you're viewing your masculine in terms of, what are you doing for me? And you're measuring their worth by their behavior and what they do for you and stuff like that, then I gotta tell ya, you are not approaching the twin flame journey from the right perspective. The twin flame journey is about unconditional love, and it's about healing each other through unconditional love. I mean, yeah, the divine feminine does carry the bulk of that load because the divine feminine is more awake. But I understand why divine feminines get frustrated and feel like, why do I have to do all the work? But it's the way this journey is planned out by Spirit, and there's something beautiful in it. There's something beautiful in taking a wounded divine masculine and healing them through the transformative power of unconditional love. And just don't think about your circumstances. Just step back and look at it from that perspective of somebody who is deeply wounded because of whatever happened in their lives, whether their parents full-blown abandoned them or abused them, or whatever it is that caused the avoidant attachment disorder, the abandonment wounds, the self-worth wounds, whatever it is that caused it. Imagine taking that person and just loving them so much and so unconditionally and completely that it teaches them how to love themselves. And it teaches them that they do have worth and that they do deserve love and happiness. And that they don't need to be afraid of relationships. And they don't need to be afraid that someone who has stepped into their lives and loves them so much is going to fail them the way that their parents did. Because when you think about it, when their own parents fail them and create these abandonment wounds, whether it's literally complete abandonment or emotional abandonment, however it happens, when their own parents fail them, imagine how hard it is to allow themselves to trust anybody else. And that's why they're so deeply wounded. And that's why they get caught up in bad behaviors. And that's why they run. And that's why they push you away, because they think it's better. They think it's better for you because they don't feel worthy of you. And they think that it's better for them because you won't end up breaking their heart one day if they actually were able to allow themselves to open their heart. Because when their own parents and their own family failed them, and created those significant inner traumas and wounds, it's very scary, almost debilitating, to allow the divine feminine in. And the divine feminine is the only woman, or the only person, I should say, because it can be either gender for both. But the divine feminine is the only person who has the connection strong enough to be able to break through those wounds and to be able to break through those blockages. And just think about how beautiful that is, to love someone that much that your unconditional love heals those wounds and helps them see their worth and helps them love themselves and helps them choose their happiness too, instead of running from it because of fear of always being disappointed and hurt. So I know everybody's individual situation with their twin is different and unique and not easy. And there's all sorts of difficulties that divine feminines are out there dealing with, whether it's the avoidant attachment disorders and stuff that I just said, or addictions. Well, it's all tied in together, but there's all sorts of situations out there. But step back from that and look at the beauty of healing each other through the power of divine love, and stop and think about, how are you measuring this person's worth in your life and in this connection? And stop allowing yourself to go down that 3D thinking path and that 3D conditioning of, what are they doing for me? And honestly, even how are they behaving, and what do they have to bring to the table? Because they're healing and working through all of that stuff. And you need to trust them to get through that process. And you need to trust spirit to bring them through that healing process to where they will be ready. That's what union is. Union takes time to get to. It's not an overnight process. You cannot get caught up in that thinking of you expect union to happen immediately. It takes time. But you have to trust them and you have to trust spirit to get them there, to get them through that process. Even if they're not consciously working towards it, spirit will bring them through the experiences that heals them and gets them there. So you got to turn off that 3D thinking of, what are they doing for me? What do they have to bring to the table? And how you're measuring their worth. And you have to start seeing them through the eyes of unconditional love and accept them completely. And love them and help encourage them energetically or in person, whatever the dynamic is, to help them find their way through their healing. And when you stop measuring their worth based on 3D thinking, you help them stop measuring their own worth through 3D thinking. I can talk. And you help them heal that way too. So, but it starts with you. If you're holding on to that 3D thought process of, what are you doing for me? Then they're not going to let go of it. So stop and assess yourself and assess how you're viewing yourself also. But this focus was on the divine masculine. So, okay. So I hope that helps some of you guys. Talk to you again soon. I have a quick add-on, an example that I forgot that I had wanted to say. A few years ago, when I was working through my own internal process of the 3D thinking versus the 5D thinking, and I was working through some struggles that I was having over, you know, 3D behavior and actions and stuff like that. And my twin had also said something to me. He had said, "Why do you put up with me?" And this was one of our self-worth conversations. And I was thinking about that. And, I had to admit to myself that when it came down to 3D behavior and actions, like, yeah, that is a valid question. Because, what he does for me versus what I do for him are different. But I still can't help it because I can't help the depth of my love for him. In fact, the depth of my love for him has grown significantly over the years, even though we've been apart and in separation. And his behavior was very different in the beginning versus now. Like, if you were to say, refer to a lack of action, in the beginning, it would have been from running, but now it's not because of running, or I shouldn't say now, but like during the later stages, the reunion stages. It's not because of running, it's because of life. It's because of there not being enough time in the days. It's because of juggling work and kids and all the karmic dynamics of his situation, among other things. I have the same struggles in juggling life and time, not having enough time in the days. So there's two very different reasons. But regardless, there's still that difference in action and behaviors. That is something that I have reflected on. And I realized that, from his perspective, he was seeing it as like, I don't do enough for you. Why do you even put up with me? Why do you love me? That type of thing. And what I came to realize at some point along the way, especially with, what I'm talking about for these videos, is that that's the key difference. That I am not measuring my love for him or our relationship based on 3D conditioning. I'm not measuring it based on what he does for me or whatever. It just is. I just feel it, and it just is. It just exists because this is a higher connection, a higher purpose, a higher divine love. It exists free of those 3D conditions, and it just is, and it always will be, and it just gets bigger and greater and more intense no matter what is going on. And that's the case for everybody. For all twin flames is what I mean by everybody. So that's why you have to, set aside and separate yourself from that 3D thinking process of what do they do for you, and not that you can control how they think, but try to get them off of that line of thinking as well, and try to help them understand and see it from that same place of the divine love, because it's not about, what they do for you. It just is. Like, the depth and enormity of my love for my twin has nothing to do with what he was asking me of why I put up with him. And it just is. I don't need to provide a list of things as a reason why. You know what I mean? It just is. And it far surpasses our worldly 3D earthly conditions. And the sooner that you can embrace that and go with it and not allow the 3D to cloud your head and your judgment and all that stuff, because that's lower based thinking, the easier path it'll be for you in embracing the 5D consciousness and the divine love of it all. Okay. Again, I hope that helps. I have one more example. I think it's the last one, but it came to me right as I was ending. I was like, "Oh, it's perfect. I'm just gonna have to go over." I wanted to try and keep it to 15 minutes, but I'm gonna go over anyway. Friends. Who has watched Friends? I mean, I'm 41, so it was my prime time and one of my favorite shows ever. So if you watched Friends, Ross and Rachel and Julie, do you remember the episode when Ross is trying to choose between Julie and Rachel? And with Chandler and I assume Joey as well, though I can't remember Joey being there, but I know Chandler was. Anyway, he makes a list of pros and cons for each of them. And, Julie has all of these great pros, and Rachel has more cons than she has pros. But with Julie, the one con that she had that was, the deciding factor was she's not Rachel. And that's just how it is. That's just how it works with twin flames. It doesn't matter all the pros and the cons of them and their lives and their behavior and all of that stuff. All that matters is that nobody else is them. And that's just how it is. Okay? So that's my last example for you. I have a freshly cleaned dog. I will talk to you guys later. Ha, just kidding. I was distracted by my racing dog. That's what she does. She gets out of the shower and she runs laps around the house. And my daughter wasn't thinking, because she knew I was recording, but she wasn't thinking, and she let her out. Spirit wants me to elaborate that a little bit better, a little bit more without the distraction of the running dog. So like I was saying, that example with Ross comparing Julie and Rachel is the perfect example of you can be presented with the perfect person. You can be presented with a soulmate, but your soulmate is not your twin flame. And I channeled years ago that from Jesus that soulmates cannot override twin flames either. And you may be allowed to have a soulmate for a period of time. Not every twin is or does. It's part of your soul contract if so. But the soulmate connections will always come to an end when it's time for the twin flame connection to move forward. And Spirit will orchestrate that. Your own higher selves will plan that process out and will orchestrate that. But this is actually goes back to that too. Whether you're just in the twin flame journey and you're struggling with your twin flame's behavior versus what you want from a relationship. And I have clients like that. I have friends like that who are struggling with that. They're dealing with twins who are dealing with things like addictions, and they're like, this is not what I would accept in a relationship. Why can't I stop thinking about this person? Whether you're dealing with something like that, or you're just on a normal twin flame process that's not crazy struggling on either side, or you're in a case of you really are presented with the soulmate option versus the twin flame option. I am just here to tell you that nobody and nothing else is your twin flame. So whether it's you struggling with your twin flame's behavior, pros and cons list, or you have that soulmate option, I'm just here to tell you that nobody and nothing is your twin flame or can override that. And your soul is always going to want your twin flame. And it doesn't matter about the behavior. And the love is not measured by the behavior. The love is not measuring their worth by any of the 3D stuff. So that's what you have to come to understand and accept and release attachment to. Release your attachment to that 3D conditioning and expectations. I have a giant knot in my hair. Oh, this is what comes with curly hair. and focus on embracing that higher 5D perspective and that higher divine love. And just let your journey play out how it's meant to, depending on what those options may be. Okay? I hope this helps. Let me know if you have questions.